I'm gonna attempt beating Dying Light 2 using only guns. This means attacking the enemies in any way other than shooting is not allowed. This game was definitely not meant to be played in this way, so will it even be possible? Let's find out. As always, I'll be playing solo nightmare mode for maximum difficulty. Really fast, let's get you up to speed. In this journey, we'll be playing as Aiden Caldwell, 15 years after the events of Dying Light. Aiden is searching for his sister Mia, and they were both test subjects of experiments to combat the Marron virus, which is now since spread globally. With the help of Spike and his informant, we head to Old Villador to find her. Along the way, Aiden gets bitten by a volatile, and we witness our informant's death at the hands of Waltz, who was the man behind the experiments performed on Aiden and Mia. Near death and turning after surfacing in the survivor's base in Old Villador, Aiden is saved by a stranger and we're taken away. We're taken back to some girl's house, injected with an inhibitor, then decimated by a baseball bat, which ends up stopping the transformation process into a zombie. This is where the rest of the world is introduced, starting with Villador. After exploring and learning about the area a bit with Hakon, it becomes nighttime and it's time to run! Our next mission is to get a biomarker, because without one, nobody trusts you anywhere in this game. Something super cool in this game, if you look closely at the zombies, you can actually see their biomarkers indicating that they've turned. I'm cutting out a decent portion of this beginning chase sequence because I don't know how to turn my flashlight on yet, but the chase sequences in this game are super scary. Eventually, we get to Hakon's friend's house, who's named Killian, and we're forced into our first soft lock section of the game within about 10 minutes of playing. Obviously, it would defeat the purpose of the challenge if I just smacked these guys around with my weapon right now, so I had to come up with some creative ways to kill these zombies, since the story only progresses once they're dead. My first thought was to run them off the side of the building, but for some reason, zombies in Dying Light 2 are exponentially smarter than they were in the first game, and it takes a lot more for them to willingly go over the edge. Though this method doesn't work immediately, it does show me that by standing right in this particular spot, sometimes they yeet themselves off the side of the building right here for no particular reason whatsoever. They only really ever do so though when there's at least two of them, and the zombies can still sometimes hit you when they surround you. I also found that if you stand in certain spots, the zombies can't get you, so that might help out in certain playthroughs. But eventually, after watching them belly flop from the roof enough times, there's this one left. No matter what I tried, he just would not fall over the edge, so I had to come up with another strategy. And I'm surprised it took me as long as it did to come up with this new strategy. You see, the way you're supposed to fight in this game is with perfect blocks, dodges, parries, and ripostes. So this obviously won't work for me since I'd be attacking, but what about just defending? Whenever you perfect block an attack, the attacker stumbles backwards a little bit, and I think you see where I'm going with this. With one single perfect block on this zombie, he goes flying over the edge and I finally make it past this lockout. With this mission done, I unlock sleeping, but we're not quite allowed to roam freely yet, so I'm forced to make my way to the next quest objective to get a biomarker at the nearest hospital. Things go way better in this mission though, because for some reason, zombies in Dying Light 2 have evolved to require sleep, so I'm just able to sneak past them. The instant I get the biomarker, I'm told I'm about to turn, so I have to make a speedy exit and get into the light. Now with the biomarker on my wrist, I'm able to roam freely throughout the world, so naturally, the first place I go to is directly back to the place people tried to kill me in the beginning of the game. Alright, let's go into a bit more detail with the challenge. As some of you who have played this game may know already, you're normally not able to get guns until the second half of the game when you unlock the gun vendor by doing a specific quest. So you may be asking, but FP Survivor, how in the world are you going to kill zombies? It's gonna be super difficult to play the whole first half of the game without being able to attack. To which I only respond to you with, shut up. I've been playing this game for a long time, since launch in fact, and if you logged into the game sometime before March 7th, you're given a free Marron pistol. This is what allows me to complete this challenge, making this one of the most limited challenges you can probably do in this game. Just because I have a pistol though, doesn't mean I'm able to use it yet. Did you know that if you want to use guns you need ammo? I know, crazy concept. So I now have to traverse the lands in search of ammo, and hope that I get the right kind and caliber for my Marron pistol. Oh look, I found some. Okay, I definitely made it look way too easy getting this ammo. In this game, there's these things called evacuation convoys, and inside of these chests, there will always be submachine gun and pistol ammo. In order to get to these chests, however, I need to somehow get past all of these zombies, and since I can't kill them, I need to find another way to get past them. I try for a super long time leading them down this hill, but it doesn't really end up working. Eventually, I lead over a bandit who wants to kill me and try to have him kill the zombies for me, but he just dies after a certain point, so the last thing I end up trying is simply leading the zombies away and then relying on my fast lockpicking skills to open the chest before they get to me and kill me. On this particular side of the map, if I run down this road here, there's actually another evacuation convoy that I can do the same thing at. It took me a good minute to figure out the best way to do this, but eventually I succeeded and came out of it with a total of 90 ammo. Once both of these are done, there's even a spot that I can sleep at to reset the loot in the chests. Needless to say, this is where I'm going to be spending a lot of my time. Future FP Survivor here, I spent so long. I spent so long grinding this. For future reference, I'm not going to mention every single time I go to get ammo, so if you see my ammo count fluctuating randomly, it's because I went and grinded for a while to get more. But anyway, after about an hour of grinding, I finally feel I have enough ammo to take on the next bit of story with a crisp 71 bullets. It's time to try to get to the central loop where we think Mia is. Thanks to the zombies being sleeping beauties, I'm able to stealth past without any issue. Or at least that's what I would like to say if I wasn't so dang bad at stealthing. Despite getting caught, I get to the end after a while, but before I'm able to go through this door, I have to kill this spitter zombie thing that's actively doing the spitting thing he does so well. To be honest, he wasn't all that hard to beat. It turns out headshots do matter, which is both good and bad for me. Good because I love that I can do extra damage and am rewarded for good aim, and bad because I have to aim there all the time, and it's much more likely for me to miss. But after taking them all out, I'm able to move on without any issues. We get to the end of the tunnel, get smacked upside the head by another baseball bat and knocked out. How our boy Aiden here is not dead to blunt force trauma is beyond me. Pretty sure Glenn was taken out in less hits. But this is how we meet Ader and the Peacekeepers.
Where did you come from?
Where did you go?
The Peacekeepers are essentially the law of the land in this game, and are currently at their boiling point with the survivors at the bazaar, since they think one of them killed their leader Lucas. Long story short, Ader says he'll get us to the city if we find Lucas's killer. Remember growing up and kids would just chuck rocks at each other as hard as they could? That's so stupid. I am stuck. Why can't I move? I'm gonna die! No! It's time to make my way to the bazaar and make some friends.
But watch your back, Pilgrim.
Okay, not that guy. That guy's not my friend. In order to move on with the story, I need to prove to Sophie for some reason that I'm on their side and help them. Sadly, most of the missions require you to do some form of zombie slaying, so unless I want to have to round up a bunch of ammo every time I want to do a side quest, I'm gonna have to find missions that are passive in nature. For example, this guy needs electronic parts to create an electric fence. I bring them to him, then 1 minute later we're goat slayers, so whoops. But with that done, we need to do one more mission for the Bazaarians before we can proceed. So I go find this woman who is singing on the roof of this building nearby, and turns out she lost her scarf and I need to go get it for her. Which, this quest reminds me so much of getting that balloon for that child in that old Spider-Man 2 game. Now able to continue with the story, Sophie finally deems me worthy of her time and she sends me to find her brother who went into a dark zone while injured.
I can try to track him down.
You?
Yeah, me. I've got a gun. So anyway, I go in guns blazing, saving Barney and all that. Oh, it's this guy.
Gone?
Oh man, I should have left him. Now that he's back though, Sophie fully trusts me and that leads me into another mission where their team was ambushed by some bandits. I'm essentially told to just annihilate them, which I happily do so by shooting them right as they are climbing up to me. Let gravity do the work for you. I sure know gravity works against me. Well, the whole team didn't make it, but at least we Okay, new plan. I'm gonna test how long it'll take to kill this thing with my little Nerf gun. Well, that took a lot. But as I was saying, at least we have the decoys unlocked now, so these will make farming the ammo so much more efficient as long as I can craft them. Oh, remember when I said like 2 seconds ago that the whole team didn't make it? Well, I totally
lied.
Apparently Carl, who was the leader of the Bizarre-nites, was kidnapped and taken to the bandit camp, so of course I gotta go bust him out of there single-handedly. It crosses my mind for like 5 seconds to actually try to stealth, but then I remember this moment from earlier and charge! Despite how I make it look here by getting hit to critical health within the first 10 seconds of the fight, it was actually relatively easy to beat this mission. For some reason, when I stood on top of this pillar thing, I was able to just shoot down at the lieutenant while my teammate beat the crap out of him. All of the other enemies were too busy taunting me to do anything. But eventually What is Spider-Man doing here? Eventually, with enough bullets, this guy goes down, and I'm able to pull the flag down, ignoring all other enemies and erasing them from existence. So, with that all taken care of, I go to the water tower, hand the control over to the survivors, since giving it to the peacekeepers would only let me use things I'm not allowed to use in this challenge, and we're able to move on with our lives. Now, Hakon suggests that we check out Barney's place since he's acting kinda sus, and that's when we find Lucas's gross detached skin and tattoo in the corner of Barney's room. Barney, of course, comes in at this very moment, finds me snooping around and blames me for planting it on him, forcing me to absolutely Yu-Gi-Oh! Obliterate him. Up until this point, my allegiance has been to Ader, but unfortunately for him, my opinion is as easily swayed as a plastic bag in the wind. So Sophie here is just like, buddy, I will give you $1 if you come and help the survivors. And I jump on that deal instead. Our next plan is to go blow up the Peacekeepers' gigantic windmill so we can weaken them before fighting them. But first, we need explosives. I find some in this little spot after watching this guy get sent into the stratosphere by a giant from Skyrim, so we should be ready to go. I also find out that if you stand up on top of this tightrope wire cable thing, the virals will try to get to you and you can just shoot them one single time to knock them off and kill them. Everything else I kinda just lured away and then ran to the baskets to open them, a strategy that is very useful later on. When the time comes, the windmill heist itself is easy to get through since it's just parkouring to the top, so not much to see here. When we return to Alberto afterward, however, is a different story, since the peacekeepers found out where he was hiding and started bullying him while I was away. They weren't insanely difficult since I just did a one-to-one recreation of what I did to Barney, but there being 2 of them in this tiny space made it way more difficult than it needed to be. Sadly, Alberto doesn't end up making it, and we're presented with a major story option. I've played through Dying Light 2 a few times now, so I've seen which paths these options lead me down. The one on the right is a much shorter option and has less fighting involved, but I chose the one on the left since Alberto asked as his dying wish that I tell his son that he's proud of him and to give him credit for the operation being successful. This means that I now have to go back to the bazaar that was currently in the process of being raided by the PKs. Let's just say that it was a really good thing I stocked up on so many bullets before taking this on, because there were so many enemies, even a boss. Thankfully, other than them throwing crap at me, I came out of it relatively unscathed since they couldn't reach me on this pillar and the boss just kinda got stuck. But hey, I'll definitely take it. We've made some new friends now, and it's time to meet up with Hakon to go to the central loop finally. He gets sniped from across the world, however, and turns out that this scar right here was from the Lazarus, which means that Hakon is the one who killed Lucas this whole time, and that Waltz, our most dire enemy, was the one who put him up to it. Obviously, our boy 80 isn't the happiest at learning this, but we don't just leave him to die because we are better than that. Turns out his attempted assassin was a woman he knows, and that is all he is willing to tell me. Now, with all these missions complete, I'm in that weird in-between section of the game where you're leaving Old Villador and trying to get to the central loop. There's a whole list of things that attempt to stop me from doing so, most notably of the bunch being the zombies, parkouring, no electricity, a new special infected charger zombie that takes about 60 bullets to kill, Ader and the Peacekeepers, and then Bruce Lee himself. I wake up sometime later to some bandit cannon fodder trying to rob me, and for some reason that I can't find any clear answer to, Aiden turns into a volatile night hunter thing, and you're supposed to go on this straight out of Dead Island style fury and unleash hell on the enemy. But luckily for me doing this challenge, I'm able to Goomba stomp this guy, and we're able to move on without having killed a single one of them. I chase down the recently escaped Waltz to to ask where Mia is, but it's pretty clear that he's too much for me to handle right now, as you can see from him absolutely manhandling me. The only thing that really comes from this interaction is that he turns on what seems to be a generator, and I'm saved by the Lawan woman we were told to meet by Spike's informant. This is all followed by an extremely scary chase sequence from Waltz, who's pretty much a human volatile. While there's only one of him, I think this chase sequence is comparable to the Tunnel of Death from Dying Light 1. The entire time I was too afraid to turn around because it felt like he was right behind me. But eventually, we make it to safety after Waltz falls into this bottomless pit. Turns out that the generator that Waltz flipped about 4 seconds ago turned on the power grid to the entire city somehow, and it's gone. In all honesty though, this was a beautiful scene. Nothing else for me to really say here, I loved this part. Something else I love, getting the paraglider, yay! This thing is so cool. Getting it to level 3 allows you to do some crazy cool movement techniques that let you bypass some spots of the game. So you'll see me doing this a lot. You'll also probably see me dying to this a lot. Now that we're able to roam around freely in the central loop, Lawan introduces us to her friends, but I'm immediately roped into saving the place when some bandits attack. This section was by far the hardest part thus far in the game, because every time I fired my weapon, virals would spawn and scale the entire building to get to me. Not only did I have to worry about both bandits and virals at the same time, but every time I died, I would have to start over and your ammo doesn't replenish when you die. In the end, I got lucky because the virals went and smacked up the bandits instead of me for once, giving me just enough time to extinguish the igniter. This is also where we're introduced to Jack, Matt, and the rest of the Central Loop Peacekeepers, who are like the good version of Peacekeepers that actually do their jobs. It's kinda hard to explain. Ladies and gentlemen, the moment we've all been waiting for has arrived. In Dying Light, you're supposed to be going from weapon to weapon, trying all different kinds out and upgrading them as you see fit. But we've only had this single Haran pistol this whole time, so I think it's time for an upgrade. Now that we're in the Central Loop, we have access to Jai. Jay?
Call me Jay.
Okay, I think his name is Jay. His quest line, The Lost Armory, is what's going to unlock other guns for us to use. But first we have to go through about 12 different objectives to complete it. So I stock up on ammo with about an hour of grinding and head out. Let's make this quick. First, I go to find a GRE crate that has a code in it. This leads me to a nearby GRE quarantine to get another code. Then to a person named Delta for the third code. Turns out Delta wants some crazy rare materials, and this introduces survivor missions into the game. These missions are recommended for a normal player to do with other normal players. Not only do I have the challenge of using only guns with limited amounts of ammo, but I'm going to be doing these missions alone, so wish me luck. Crap. So I just put so many shots into this demolisher, but when you die, the zombie's health regenerates, meaning I ran out of ammo pretty quickly. I'm gonna have to do a bunch of grinding and then come back.
1 million zillion jillion dillion cotillion times later.
Okay, third time's the charm. Let me walk you through how I did this monstrosity of a mission solo. First, you have to get to the rare medicine, which is in these green baskets. They don't take too long to open, and when you do, you're given a few seconds of immunity from zombie attacks. So I just lure them away, jump on their heads or anything else to delay their movement, and run to open the containers. Doing this 3 times for a total of 12 crates each allows me to get to the end of the mission where I have to clear the area of infected, forcing me to kill each and every single zombie, including this demolisher. This is made so much harder because whenever you shoot a gun, it summons like 3 extra virals or these toxic spitter guys that are the bane of my existence. So I have to dodge the demolisher's ground pound and ranged attacks, the normal zombies, the virals, the spitters. I think there was even a banshee, all while trying not to die. By the end of the demolisher's health bar, I had already expended 400 bullets. But hey, on the bright side though, as soon as he was gone, the rest of the zombies were a cakewalk. And I finally got through this incredibly arduous and tedious survivor mission. The rest of the Lost Armory in comparison to that survivor mission was nothing. Even Tackhead himself didn't stand much of a chance against someone, with a gun. I mean, who'd have thought, right? But with this mission now complete, we get another pistol. Only this one is purple. The real goal, however, is to get a submachine gun, which I am still sadly just barely unable to get, so looks like I have to do another survivor mission. I went ahead and did a little bit of research and ended up finding toxic work environment. Essentially all you do in it is kill the zombies while avoiding the chemical areas, and then face a boss monster, resulting in a pretty easy success. I'm happy to say that we are now the proud owners of our own submachine gun, and the amount of grinding I've done really shows with just how much ammo I've already picked up for it. Look at this. I have so much ammo. I just spent the last 6 hours getting this thing. I think it's about time I tried it out. Oh, come on, what are you gonna do? Stab me? I've got a... He stabbed me! Okay, so lesson learned. The SMG is only really good when you really let loose with it. I guess I don't need to be concerned with conserving ammo at least. Future FP Survivor here, I'm just throwing this in here. Completing this quest gave us access to the boomstick item. I have it, I used it like once, but I don't really end up using it again because of the sheer amount of ammo I have. Okay, back to the story. It's time to do some setup for one of the most difficult missions in the game, but also one of the coolest, the VNC Tower. Jack Matt is about to lead a raid to try to take it back, so we have to get some UV lights prepared. Along the way, I encounter the story's introduction of the Demolisher, but he is way easier to take down. Once that's done and we're ready, it's time to storm the tower. Let's see, talking to people and getting to know them before a big mission, talking about what they're gonna do when they get back, and one of their wives are pregnant? I can see the God of Death Flags now, rubbing his hands together maniacally at the mere thought of this conversation. Nah, what could possibly go wrong? Holy crap, everything is going wrong! The VNC Tower mission is actually incredibly scary. It's super cool the amount of anxiety that was built up before everything happened. Sadly, the entire team, including Ro, perished, and our boy Aiden here isn't too far off himself until being put into the Fury state again. Luckily, once again, I'm able to get by without doing anything, however. I just run to this corner of the room, and all the zombies that were chasing me a moment ago just despawn. I might not have a team or a leader anymore for this mission, but the plan is still to get to the top of the tower. We need some guidance first, however, so we call up Frank. You see, Frank was the leader of a group of extraordinary individuals called the Night Runners, who sadly all perished, similarly to what just happened here, before disbanding. So after telling him I'll give him whatever money I have in my piggy bank, he agrees to help me get to the top. He leads me to this grappling hook that was left behind by one of the Night Runners before, and we use it to essentially get all the way to the tippy top of the tower and turn on the radio antenna. I have a soft spot for Frank and the Night Runners, so I decide to give the tower to Frank, severely pissing off Jack, who had just put this whole operation underway. Sorry, Jack. Now that we're still alive and not super duper dead like the rest of the group, Lawan is starting to feel a certain special way toward Aiden. She takes me back to her apartment and tells me to go find her shoes, or else. So I do, and find out that she used to be, you know what, with Hakon. Turns out Hakon was also a Night Runner before, and was the reason everyone got killed in the tower because he and his team was a no-show. So that's the reason Hakon is on her hit list. Seems about right, I suppose. But anyway, now that we've given the control of the radio to Frank, he'll be the one helping us now with finding Mia, since Jack isn't too fond of the fact we betrayed him and all. Since Frank has control, he's able to kinda spy on the renegades, and he overhears them talking about Waltz. So I go to check it out, leading me to another soft lock point, where I'm put into volatile state. This one was a rather difficult lock to solve, as there's nowhere for the enemies to fall off to utilize fall damage. Eventually I found that if I stand on this particular light, they will climb up after me, and since I'm immune to any kind of damage in this form, I'm able to just push them off. If I got lucky, they would land on this fire barrel and die quickly, but some I had to push off the ledge at least 10 times until they finally keeled over. After about 30 minutes, this soft lock was passed. I'm woken a bit later by Frank, who came to check on me, and we tell him about a GRE doctor that the Renegades were talking about that Waltz was looking for. Also, turns out the Renegades knew that they were being spied on somehow, which I can only attribute to what I call anime foresight. Also, turns out Hakon has made a return now, tipping Frank off to the fact that they know, and now he wants to meet with me. So I go soaring through the skies, as one does, and head to the church where we're supposed to meet. Apparently he's still working for Waltz, and he wants the GRE key. To which you could probably expect how my response went. Ah, come on, there's no way you're still alive.
You're in no condition to fight.
You're in no condition to fight. My boy here looks like he just took an RPG to the face. So depending on your previous actions in the story here, a few different things can happen. But with the ones that I've taken, Hakon doesn't loathe me enough to want to kill me, and we decide that we don't want to fight anymore. Then Lawan comes, and I have to talk her out of shooting him in the brain with her crossbow. In any case, Hakon lives to see another day here, instead of being put down for good, so that's a win in my book, since I kinda like Hakon. Well, now that the power of friendship has prevailed, it's time to go find that GRE doctor that was mentioned, because she can help me find where Mia is. Her name is Veronica, and she's going to help me get into the observatory to access its database. The observatory is usually surrounded by really deadly chemicals, but luckily for us, Veronica just so happens to have an extremely rare medicine called a blocker that temporarily makes you immune to the chemicals. Wow, what a coinky-dink. I'm then put through a series of obstacles, but eventually I do make it to the database. Veronica and I find no information on Mia for some reason, but apparently a missile from 11 years ago has been reactivated with the electricity being restored, and now several areas of the city are now under threat of being, exploded. To make things worse, Walt shows up and forces me into another chase sequence, and then a boss fight. Oh no, this is gonna be really hard, isn't it? Oh, he died already. He didn't even attack me. We're then thrown down to Veronica after having just lost control of ourselves, and I think it's clear what happens next. This is easily the worst death for me in the game. Veronica did not deserve to go out like that, man. Waltz and I are then exploded by a missile that lands approximately 2 feet in front of us, but don't worry, everyone survived and were even hoisted to safety by Lawan, who somehow made it out to the observatory. Not quite sure how she did that, since I required an Omega blocker to get through the chemicals, but that's alright. We're nearing the end of the game, and everyone just wants to see what happens, right? Here we are now. The city a few potholes richer. Frank calls us to meet him at the fisheye. Apparently there's more missiles on the way or something, and he set up a meeting with someone named the Butcher. I've got to threaten to beat Frank up if he doesn't let me attend the meeting, but eventually he yields. The meeting doesn't even begin yet before Frank is shot in the heart with a poison arrow, but thankfully we know a certain witch doctor who can cure him of the poison. So after a visit to her and a quick free-diving expedition, I make my way back and save Frank's life. Now, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for that sad epilogue portion of these games where you get to the final mission message. I follow the van that had just attacked Frank by GPS marker and take out the bandits inside this building. Okay, on the second try, I do it. Afterward, I force this poor kid to smuggle me into the Renegade stronghold. I'm not sure what the deal is with first-person games in recent years going randomly third-person like this. It's happened twice now, with this and Dead Island 2, which isn't a lot, but it's still weird that it's happened twice. We get inside without any problem, and now it's time to stealth our way through the base. Let me just go ahead and show you how I went with being stealthy here. I am the best. Now that I've successfully become Batman, we're inside and get to talk to the Colonel. According to him, he had nothing to do with the attack on Frank. This is backed up with the statement from the witch doctor from earlier that the poison was a different kind than the Renegades normally use, hinting that they might not have done it. So I decide to trust him instead of Jackmat, which he obviously appreciates by his quick and immediate threat to my life over the radio. Now I have to rely on the Colonel to get me to Facility X-13 where Waltz is, and stop the missiles from launching and destroying the city. So I sell all of my earthly possessions other than my all reliables and head out. It's not been 15 seconds since we betrayed Jackmat that he decides to get his revenge on us as we're on the way to X-13. Jack here could put Liam Neeson to shame with how quickly he took vengeance. But since the Night Runners have been reformed and side with me, Jack's men refuse his orders, seeing that he's too set on revenge. Look, even Hakon is among them. This one scene brought together almost everything you do in the story, and it was honestly so cool to see. That is, until another dude got a 25 kill streak. What am I, a missile magnet? A short time later, Lawan meets me at X13, even though I tell her to go away, so I guess she's just with me now. We walk into a big old room that's filled with Waltz's renegade friends, and Lawan takes an arrow to the knee trying to keep me safe. So it's time for my own revenge kick. It starts off with shooting, but we're put into yet another volatile mode and have to find our own way to get through the section. This spawns in a few actual volatiles that make some incredibly fast work of the renegades, until it's only me and them left. Luckily, I'm still immune to damage for some reason in this form, but volatiles are still the most difficult enemies in the game to deal with. You almost have to rely on them falling off of things themselves since you can't push them or stun them. Eventually, however, after about 25 minutes, I found this spot where if the volatiles fell on top of this pipe, they would get stuck and have no choice but to die, allowing me to yet again bypass this soft lock without attacking a single time and breaking the rules of the challenge. After making sure Lawan is okay, Hakon comes to take care of her and we set off to find Waltz. And it's time for the absolute final boss fight to save the city. Waltz pretty much has every zombie's special attacks we've encountered up to this point, some of which can kill me in one hit since I only put one measly point into my health stat. But one proves to be all I need, as I get through the first phase with only one death. Second phase rolls around and Waltz runs as fast as he possibly can away from me. The second phase is mostly attacking when I can and waiting for him to return when he runs away, but it's pretty close to the same as phase 1. Then phase 3 comes and it's more of the same, just while doing so on these tiny platforms. Do a bit of damage and eventually he'll jump to another platform until reaching the very top. When Waltz is at about 1/4 of his health, you enter volatile state once again, and sadly, after trying for over an hour, there's simply nothing you can do to damage him if you don't attack him. I tried jumping on his head, doing splash damage from his throw attacks, knocking him off the platform, tricking the game into forcing me back into normal state, and nothing worked. Eventually, I had to just give up and attack, and since phase 4 is the same fight once again, just in volatile mode, this would have sadly been impossible to complete without attacking in some way, since he's immune to everything else. After getting Waltz stuck in a stun lock, I finally defeat him and it's game over. Our sister Mia makes her appearance finally, not wanting to hurt anyone and telling Aiden to save the city. Waltz then, like an Omega level dingbat, knocks the key into the chemical lava stuff, and Lawan has to sacrifice herself to save the city and explode the missiles. She's saved off camera, however, by Hakon, and that's pretty much the end of the game. And the ending that I got, Lawan actually joins us as we leave the city.
You were supposed to stay in the city.
Says who?
But yeah, that's pretty much the end of the game. So let's address the elephant in the room. Dying Light 2 is not for everybody. It had some pretty huge shoes to fill with its predecessor, and while some might not feel it lived up to the previous game's potential, I think they're both still amazing games. One thing is for sure, if you go into this game thinking it'll be similar to the first, you will probably be disappointed, especially if you don't use the physical parkour setting. I remember first playing this game and putting it down immediately, feeling how restricted they made the parkour feel. But once they came out with the update that fixed it, I decided I'd return to try again, and I'm glad I did. I feel both games are different in their own special ways, and as long as you go into it without those expectations, you won't be let down. As for the challenge itself, although I did have to use my melee ability one time at the very end, I still feel like it's fair to say it is possible to beat this game using only guns. If not, then technically, until finding a way to kill Waltz with fall damage or something, the only possible challenges would be melee or kicking only. Doing this challenge on Nightmare difficulty changed so much of the game from the last time I played, it's kinda crazy. I really encourage all of you to give it a shot. Special thanks to all my wonderful members. You have a special place in my heart. If you'd like to see these challenges as they're in progress, I will be starting to stream them very soon, so watch out for those.